I've mentioned this before, but I'm from Minnesota, and we just passed one of the most important right to repair laws to date. One which passive-aggressively helps change the face of repair throughout the world. Greetings and welcome to another repair-tastic episode of Veronica Explains. I'm Veronica, and in today's video, I'm going to talk about how Minnesota just scored repair manuals for the entire world to use. On May 24th, 2023, the governor of Minnesota signed an omnibus bill which included a new law which requires manufacturers to provide the same tools and manuals to Minnesota consumers as they do to their own repair shops. But, and this might be the coolest part, they have to provide service documentation at zero cost to the consumer, assuming they make this documentation available online. This means a wide swath of consumer electronics manufacturers will now be required to make service manuals freely available to all. Minnesota just sort of opened the door for manuals to be made available to everyone worldwide, thanks to this new forward-thinking legislation. Am I excited? You betcha. I'm only gonna say that this one time. The exact text as signed into law states that for digital electronic equipment and parts for the equipment sold or used in Minnesota, an original equipment manufacturer must make available to any independent repair provider or to the owner of digital electronic equipment on fair and reasonable terms, documentation, parts, and tools for diagnostic, maintenance, or repair purposes. It goes on to say that this information must be made available within 60 days of first sale in Minnesota, and that violations of this law are subject to enforcement by the Attorney General. It then describes some interesting carve-outs. Most notably for home consumers is video game consoles and motor vehicles, but also specialized cybersecurity tools, medical devices, and farm equipment. I wonder why farm equipment was able to get an exemption. And then medical devices. I wonder how they managed to sneak right past you there. The carve-outs are different, which proves there's still a long ways to go. And it remains to be seen how manufacturers will respond to this new law. I can imagine this isn't the end of this story. I'm guessing manufacturers will try and challenge this in the courts, and we'll see how well that goes. There's also the implementation challenges. How will we make sure that manufacturers actually comply with the new law? See, the new law states that OEMs are not compelled to divulge trade secrets or anything that would override anti-theft security measures. So I can imagine we're going to see some shady definitions of anti-theft security measures in the coming months. But even with the carve-outs and the questions, a huge swath of consumer electronics will now have guaranteed manuals, thanks to this new law. To get a bit more perspective on this new legislation, I decided to head to my favorite hotbed of repair activities, Free Geek Twin Cities. They're a Minneapolis-based nonprofit which works with community volunteers and a dedicated staff to keep devices happily in use and out of the landfill. They operate a thrift store which provides low-cost electronics to the local community. They also have some limited items for sale on their website, which you can check out at freegeektwincities.org. I stopped in to talk to Amanda, their gaming department coordinator, and Adam, their technology trainer, about their mission, right to repair, and what's next now that this legislation has been passed.
If you were to come here and volunteer for a day, you would see basically the entire backbone of our operation is on right to repair.
Free Geek, we take donations of equipment at pretty much anything that is electronic. We try to fix it up to keep it out of landfills, which I think is huge. Right to repair would help us keep a lot more things out of the landfill, especially if we start making things again to the point where they're actually repairable.
We are doing everything we can to try and rescue and save any electronics that come in, and a lot of this, like, would any little bit of legal help with right to repair would really, really help us out. We need everything we can get. So getting access to manuals means getting some more clarity on what kinds of tools that we can use in order to properly fix things.
There's a lot of things that are not repairable. So you take a modern MacBook and you've got the RAM soldered to the board. Everything's pretty much just one board, and you can kind of tell where things are, but they're not really repairable.
The newer they are, the hackier the fix is. The older they are, the more experience we have, the more manuals may have been discovered and released on Internet Archives. But when it comes to newer stuff, that's where we're kind of boned. So this legislation actually would really be helpful for getting more clarity on how to properly fix something without killing it in the process.
So how horrible for you is it that consoles are not included?
It stinks because a lot of newer consoles, especially like if I'm getting PS4s, I've been starting to see PS5s, Nintendo Switches, a lot of the stuff I don't have any experience with, and the most kind of like research I can do is finding some guy on YouTube trying to fix it.
I know we're talking about the carveouts, and I kind of think that's pretty bogus in many areas. I get the medical devices and I get cybersecurity devices, but video game consoles and automobiles and things like that, I think that's kind of ridiculous.
I couldn't agree more.
Carve-outs, I imagine, just take more, and I think it's deliberate. It's extra work in order to get these types of schematics.
The farm equipment in particular feels like a complete cave.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me.
It seems kind of scuzzy, and it just seems like a waste of time. It's an extra hurdle to jump through. It's a lot of bureaucracy.
I think the whole thing's great for, laptop and computer repair and discussing free manuals and things like that. I think that's just wonderful, and I don't think we should stop with gaming consoles and laptops. I think if there was somebody out there who wanted to write and upload free manuals for even older computer equipment and things like that, that would help a lot of people who are just getting into the retro YouTube, the retro tech business, or trying to start a YouTube channel or anything like that.
A lot of times laptops just have so much stuff crammed into one unit. You're risking breaking plastic tabs, you're risking breaking other internal components as you go in, flexing boards. But if you had some kind of schematics to show you, hey, don't start on this fragile corner, instead start here, and an actual official way that they would be doing this in their own factories, then that would be a lot more helpful for saving more equipment.
Anything that we could do to keep things out of the landfill would be fantastic, because a lot of stuff that goes to e-waste is perfectly usable.
So the new law takes effect July 1st, 2024. Hopefully, by that point, we've got a ton of new information about service manuals. For me personally, this is a huge victory. I've worked closely with service industry professionals for much of the last decade in my role as a system administrator. Access to manuals is one of the biggest barriers to repairing what you own. I know I've come across that plenty when trying to repair older servers and computers. This will certainly help repair shops and service professionals like myself and my colleagues, as well as researchers and, well, really any consumers who feel handy with a soldering iron. But we can't rest on this alone. We need to chip away at the carve-outs, regardless of why they were implemented, because every device for sale should be repairable. We also need to work diligently to demand more repairable electronics from manufacturers. I refuse to accept a world in which my perfectly good phone or computer needs to be thrown away simply because the battery, a consumable resource, can't be easily replaced. As I mentioned on a recent episode of Talking Heads with Jeff from Craft Computing, when it comes to the right to repair, we're getting breadcrumbs from these manufacturers, but we shouldn't be accepting anything less than the tools and ingredients we need to bake our own cake. At least now, maybe we're going to get a cookbook.